Okay, welcome to another episode of The Fundable Founder. I'm here today with Dan Toffling, co-founder and CTO at Folia Health. Welcome, Dan.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Charlie.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you coming on today and walking us through the Folia story. But first, why don't you, what's your elevator pitch? What is Folia Health?
Right. So, in quick summary, basically, we're the first platform to make it possible for individuals to receive truly evidence-based, precise care while contributing to the groundbreaking research that we have available. And that's sort of all in one place, right? So that's sort of our high-level, quick pitch to get people kind of drawn into what we're trying to do.
That's great. And so, what is the kind of focus of Folia then?
Sure. So, like from a fundamental level, our app allows people to track things that they're experiencing, treatments they're taking, responses to those treatments, measurements, things like that. All sort of in the vein of trying to navigate their healthcare experience.
Yep.
Specifically for people that have complex conditions or chronic conditions that require a lot of keeping tabs on different doctor's appointments, treatment schedules, that sort of thing. The people who have more complexity can actually glean a lot more value from our platform. And essentially, we let people answer the questions that they feel matter to them on a daily basis or ad hoc. They can go in and track different things that they're experiencing. And then sort of allow an output of either visualizations such as graphs or just literally data tables for people to see what they've been tracking, and then be able to bring that to their doctor or clinic to have a much more informed conversation.
Got it. Got it. So, why did you and your co-founders decide to start this business in the first place? What's the origin story?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been sort of an entrepreneur for years. I started off doing software development, had my own shop for a long time, and we focused on anything from B2B, e-commerce, CRM, stuff like that. And my daughter was born in 2011 with Down syndrome, and she had a lot of medical issues that were associated with that, open heart surgery, different things with thyroid, things like that. And found myself looking at what I thought was an easy to navigate healthcare system from my own healthy perspective. But when you have all these different types of medical conditions, it became very difficult for us to navigate that. So as I was working, writing sort of business software or SaaS applications, I wanted to see if there's any other opportunities out there that I could help with this type of healthcare navigation experience. And it just so happened, as I was looking for different positions, literally my second job listing I was looking for on Boston Startup Guide was Folia Health.
Yeah.
And Nell was looking for a technical co-founder to take her idea. To give you a little understanding of where she came from, her brother has CVID, a common variable immunodeficiency, and required a lot of different diagnostic odysseys, her mother having to track all the different things that her brother was going through. And she really founded the concept of Folia, which was what I described earlier of really relieving the mental burden of people who have these chronic illnesses through an application. And I think I didn't think I'd been in an interview or put a resume together in like 10 years prior to meeting up with Nell. So that was an interesting experience. And then basically after a couple of meetings, I was really bought into her vision of what she wanted to accomplish with the application and the platform as a whole.
So a case of a couple of co-founders who experienced a pain firsthand,
Mhm.
and wanted to find a solution for others out there who might be experiencing the same thing, and probably also realizing how many millions of people out there are experiencing that same pain, right?
Exactly. And I think actually we're trying out a new tagline. It's called a healthcare app that people actually like. And this was brought to us by our users because we're getting a lot of like really great feedback from the users that we do have on the platform. And even some of the stories we have when we first started years ago, we still have some of the parents that are caregivers still using the platform after 2 or 3 years.
That's
So
fantastic.
that really gave us a good sense that we're doing something right here.
So, you had two co-founders, you have the technical background, you had a vision. Let's go back to really launching the company. And how did you think about pulling together, you know, how much product to build,
Mhm.
how far to get that, how much to add to the team, to make sure you had the team in place, how much customer traction you wanted to get,
Yep.
all while figuring out when and how to raise capital. I mean, what was the strategy or what was the thought process back then?
Yeah, so I think we definitely indexed higher on getting a more mature product together before we brought it out, just because we wanted to have the user experience and the value that the user would glean to be as high as we possibly could out of the gate.
Okay.
There's a different discussions on you should get things out there quick. Your MVP should be super simple, but we sort of went on the other aspect of that and decided to go a little bit heavier on product and UX and developing an actual fully baked product. At the time, they always iterate. We're
Sure.
on version version 5 at the moment. And I think our first step was, I had the technical know-how. Nell had a lot of sort of all of the understanding of the healthcare aspect and how things should be done from a process standpoint. We really decided that we were going to start hiring engineers to start. So our first hire was an engineer to get a fully native iOS app out there. So we weren't relying on a web app that I had started with. And then slowly we started looking at, okay, do we need to hire marketing? Do we need to hire R&D? Do we need to hire sales? Right? That was a big question for us. Essentially, we were more focused on getting people on the platform to use it, to then start adding data to our platform and having the end user be sort of the thing we focused on. So we weren't really worried about like data sales or data customers or things like that. Essentially, we started to think about fundraising when we needed to hire people.
Yeah.
That was our biggest expense, right? I mean, nowadays you could set up an AWS account and be on the free tier for a year before you don't have to worry about sort of overhead. And now that, I mean, even everything right now is very remote, so you don't have to worry about office space. That was one of our early luxuries. I think we spent the first 6 months at Nell's kitchen table, hashing out product designs, sort of the old school way to do it. But then, of course, when you start to feel the pain of if there's just 2 people or 1 person, you can only do so many things well, where then you start to kind of have to say, okay, does this require an extra position for us, a full-time employee? And that was sort of our litmus test or our catalyst for having to go out and raise money was, we needed to hire people. And we started with an angel route, right? So we've been doing angel round funding for about 3 years. And that sort of gave us, it's less on the diligence side, I would imagine, as compared to an institutional round. But I think you get a much more benefit from it because there's usually multiple individuals involved.
Right.
Which gave us unique perspectives. Some we take, sometimes we brush aside, but there was just a lot more, I think, variety when we're trying to get people's perspective on our business.
So that first round, how much did you end up or think about raising and end up raising, and kind of who was the lead angel group on that?
So we didn't actually go through a group back then.
Okay.
I think it was a little bit over 100,000 between 125.
Yeah.
Literally just to get us to the next step and start hiring the next employees.
So a little bit of a pre-seed, and then so then that money allowed you to hire a couple people, maybe hit a few more milestones.
Yep.
So what were your thoughts on, what milestones did you want to hit before you went out to raise? And how did you think about raising that kind of next round of capital?
Sure. So it was important for us to be able to show that people were actually using the platform and liking the platform, right?
Yep.
So I mean, total users was a metric we were trying to get to a certain point. I mean, early days we had like 50 people on the platform. That was a big thing for us, right?
Right.
But then I guess being able to show not necessarily a high number, but being able to show a repeatable growth metric month to month was really important for us before we went out and did a second angel round the year later. Having that sort of the stickiness factor too, like monthly active users, trying to figure out, okay, how do we show that people are signing up for this application and B, using it continuously. One of the struggles that we actually figured out early on was people were comparing us to a sort of tried and true consumer app model versus a health tech model that has a completely different sort of use case. right? So when you're looking at like a, I don't know, for lack of a better example, like an Instagram or a social media app,
Yep.
they're looking for people to be on all the time.
Right,
So
right, right.
they see more ads, and then active users is very important for the revenue side. Where on our side is if people are using it essentially just consistently over a month or something like that, or they use it once a week, or they use it every 3 days, the consistency is more important, and we try to
Sure.
figure out metrics to be able to display that.
That's great. And so was, how much did you raise in the next angel round? Was it a few hundred thousand more, or were you kind of in the millions at this point?
No, so we've been, I believe, I think we did another one. It was, we kind of like doubled every time. So
Okay.
I think the second one was around like, it was maybe less than 300. Nell would be, um, Nell does a lot more investor management and that sort of thing. I'm much more on the technical scalability and
Sure.
DevOps side. But yeah, we would be able to increase, and it got easier, to be honest with you. It got easier because we had our existing sort of momentum from our existing angels, who a lot of them would continually, every time we do another round, they would come back in and give us more capital in that sense. Or as your network widens, I think that's one of the takeaways we learned was, I mean, take every meeting that you can. Before COVID, we would go to every sort of entrepreneur cocktail hour, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
You never know who you're going to run into. And I think Nell would say, yeah, we would meet like 10, 20 people, and there'd be a certain percentage where we're like, wow, we're really glad we went to this thing, even if it was just an hour down in like the seaport or something like
Yep.
that. Just to get visibility and to get your product or brand into the conversation. I think that was important for us.
Did you guys do any accelerators or incubators or pitch competitions? Was there anything along the way that was really helpful?
Yeah, so we got office space down at Venture Lane, which is
Yep.
on 4th Street, with Christian. That was our first real office. Prior to that, it was kitchen tables and like abandoned offices that we had been lent to from people that we knew, just to keep the full startup legend together. Um, but yeah, Venture Lane was a really great place for us to do. We also did Mass Challenge, which I believe we won an award. Nell won an award the year we did it, and that was great too because there's just a lot of collaboration. Even though it was a competition, there's still a lot of
Sure.
collaboration between the companies that are involved. And they had done one that year. I think it was Mass Challenge Pulse or Health Tech.
Yep.
So it was really helpful because there's all different types of companies, but all sort of in the same industry, which was great.
Was there anything in particular you remember as being kind of like an aha moment there while you were at Mass Challenge, or maybe just after, where you're like, oh my gosh, we're really onto something here?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, we another thing that's difficult is when you're starting a company is how do you hone the messaging, right? Over time, it takes a while to be able to explain it to people. I think we finally landed on that. But the idea that I'm a user of the platform and I use it every day, and it helps me personally.
Hmm. Hmm.
It helps me take charge of my own healthcare, relieves my mental burden at times. But the idea that the data can also be used at an aggregate level to help all the people in my disease category,
Hmm.
then can help pharmaceutical companies develop therapies for my community, and then sort of create that full flywheel where more data gets tracked, more data gets aggregated, and you continually to get to benefit over that. And that sort of gave me the, wow, this could actually be a really wonderful feedback loop to help a lot of people.
Is there anything you wish you had known going into the fundraising process that would have made life a little bit easier along the way?
Um, I guess don't always look for an investor in your own industry or that has invested in a similar company. Like that was one of the things where like we really want to align with the individual investor or venture capital firm if we're looking for it. It's more about like what they can do for you, as well as, I guess that was the other thing wanted to throw in was every time we talk to an investor or VC, I always try to flip the script a little bit and say, so why would we want to work with you? Right? Just so you can get that more of a conversation.
Yep.
And just because I feel like sometimes founders don't feel like they're in the driver's seat, but ultimately they are. To have that sort of be more of a two-way conversation than just a straight pitch and response type of thing.
I think that's great advice, and it just shows recognition that this is a relationship,
Mhm.
and that it goes both ways, right? There has to be trust going both ways. There has to be mutual respect going both ways for it to work well. And I honestly, we don't get that question too often from entrepreneurs, but when we do, you love it because you go, ah, okay, they get it, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it gives us a chance to, talk about what we do well, and we want it to be a good fit. So, we always look at it as when we make an investment, we're in it for 5, 7, 10 years, right? And we're going to be there together through good times and bad, and we're going to try to help, where we can, certainly stay out of the way where we should. But there's got to be that two-way street, or it doesn't work out. So I think that's great advice that you just gave.
Excellent.
Anything else that really helped you along the way, like where you guys learned something, or a mentor that really helped out along the way, and the advice that they gave you?
Yeah, sure. I think a couple of things where when we're hiring, it's a time consuming process, right? Especially for a small firm, we're not using um, recruiters and things like that. And maybe we were looking too long term. We're saying we need to hire this perfect person so then they can be a manager at some point and they could kind of move along within the organization. But we talked to one of our investors. He said, hire what you need right now, and then they can grow as the company grows, right?
Yep.
In certain ways. This was specifically for an engineering position, but it kind of could also ring true in other parts of the business.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's good. And, you know, pulling the team together and figuring out the right people on the team is probably the most critical thing in getting a startup right, and being successful. Is, if you've got a good team, you'll figure out a lot of things along the way that you weren't expecting. And investors respect a good team for sure. So you'll get the funding that you need.
Yeah.
So finding those critical hires is important. Is there any techniques you guys do to find the right people, or how do you think about the hiring process?
So we kind of, I mean, we do a lot of just like LinkedIn or like just local Boston startup boards, that kind of thing. But we sort of send people to our website and we ask them like two questions, like what makes you feel you would be successful at this at Folia, like why, like a couple of open-ended questions, right? Just to get sort of that litmus test of like, is somebody really serious about being a part of the team and want to grow with the team and understand the mission, especially at this stage when I think we're 8 people right now.
Okay.
Really need to make sure that everybody is sort of on board with not just their job, but understanding sort of the overarching goal of the mission. And it's funny because I'll get one response is beautiful, right? Just they're understanding what we're trying to do. They have a personal experience, all this other stuff. And I'll get another one where it's like a 2-word answer.
Yep.
So like it's there's definitely a dichotomy.
Yeah, definitely the mission-driven organizations, the one that really started with a mission, hiring to that mission is really important. And it's another reason to start off with a great mission, is because it allows you to filter through the bad applicants pretty quickly.
Oh,
And I had another person on saying, why do you want to work for us? And if they didn't speak to the mission, they didn't make it to the next round. If they said, well, I want to work for you because your office is located down the street from my house, it was like, all right, see ya. Like,
yeah.
If they said, I want to work with you because your mission speaks to me because of X, Y, and Z, all right, now we'll continue the conversation. So
No, and I
I
think
always advise people to make sure you have a mission and something that everyone can kind of rally around within the organization.
no, I mean that totally. I think it's almost like it doesn't seem like it would be that important for someone who's writing the low level code for like a couple of things on our Android app, right?
Right.
When they have the mission in their head, they can see things from a bigger perspective, or they can
For
see
sure.
they can see through the stack a little bit more than if you're just giving people an idea like I need this built or that kind of thing. I mean,
Right.
I speak towards engineering because that's what I deal with a lot, but um, even other aspects in the business marketing, business development, it's very important.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think you've provided a lot of great advice today. We are right out of time, but I do like to finish by asking each person the same question, and that is, how would you describe yourself in one word?
I think tenacious will have to do it for today.
Okay. Tenacious is a good one. Well, thank you so much for being on today, Dan, and it was great catching up with you.
All right, I appreciate it.
Yeah, good luck with everything. Bye.
All right, take care.
To innovate, invent, and disrupt? We're your partner to fuel your growth. Contact us to learn more.